Good morning, students and counselors and parents if you're in the house. Let's go. My name is Calvin Pickett. I work with the College Essay Guy, and I'm here to run a workshop with you all on how to brainstorm an outstanding personal statement. My hope today is that we're going to learn a little bit about the personal statement or the college essay. I use those two phrases interchangeably. So if you hear me say one instead of the other, they mean the same thing to me. So I would say that, yeah, I'm hoping to talk a little bit about the general purpose of the personal statement, what makes a great personal statement, and then we're also going to do some brainstorming exercises that will help you develop basically a pile of stuff that you can then pick through and sort through to find great content for your personal statement. And then lastly, we're going to be able to look at some a sample personal statement to see how some of these ideas that we're talking about come to life. I'm going to ask that if you're on the call, it would be helpful to have everyone else on mute. I'm hearing that there's a little bit of an echo that someone is experiencing. So, and then from the counseling team that's on the call, if you could just reach out to me if we're having any echoey issues, that would be great. But if it sounds okay, Kate, can you give me a thumbs up if the audio is all right? Great. So it sounds like for the most part, we're able to hear. A little bit about me before we dive into talking all about you. My name is Calvin. I grew up in the New York City area in Westchester County. I wanted to be an English teacher my whole life. My mom was a teacher. I loved reading. I loved writing. And so I went to college at Vassar College in Poughkeepsie, New York, a school known for its education and English programs. Studied English and education while I was there. Straight from Vassar, I went to Columbia University in New York to get my master's, and I studied English education, and then immediately started teaching in Brooklyn and in Queens. But I realized that teaching is actually incredibly hard. And I knew that going in, but I'm just, shout out to all the teachers out there who do an unbelievably huge amount of work to run their classrooms. I realized that my passion really lied in helping young people, stories and storytelling, and sort of nerding out about writing. And so once I realized that teaching was maybe a little too hard for me, I found this outlet for working with young people on telling their stories through their college essays. Since then, I've been leaning more and more into my work, supporting students with college essays, doing one-to-one coaching, some curriculum writing, and running workshops like these that I get to have with all of you. Since I made the decision, I've moved to Vermont. I live in Burlington, Vermont, way up north, right on the border of Canada. And I've been doing this college essay work up here for a few years now. Today, in order for us to get the most out of our workshop, we're going to want to do a few things. The first thing I ask of you is to be fully present. And what that looks like to me is avoiding multitasking. As much as you're able to tune in to our work today, to tune out your phone and your other tabs that you might have open on your computer, I think you'll be able to get more out of this, the more present you are and the less you are multitasking. That said, I know that that's hard because I am sort of a phone addict myself. So I just move mine as far away from me as I can. And that seems to help. If we are able to be fully present, we will also be able to participate fully. Your participation in this is really important. The more you put in, the more you'll get out. And if you're able to participate through the Pear Deck, again, that's that link that's been shared a few times in the chat, I'll be able to see all of your ideas. And then ultimately, I'll be able to sort of highlight and amplify some of the ideas I'm seeing and share them back out with the group. So you're not just helping yourself, you're helping me facilitate, and you're helping your peers elevate their work as well. So please participate fully. And my last ask of you is to take care of yourself. So as was mentioned earlier, we are recording this. So if today, if right here is not the right time for you to do this work, for whatever reason, you can always catch up on this work later by watching the recording. And if you need to stand up, take a break, grab a glass of water, do whatever you need to do, feel free to do that. You are not trapped here. You can always catch up on this content later. We will have a break in the middle, ideally about 45 minutes to an hour in to our workshop. Let's finish the logistics of getting set up. I'm hoping to see as many students as possible join the Pear Deck. That's that link that keeps being shared in the chat. Right now we have 55 participants in the Zoom room, but we only have about 35 students on the Pear Deck. So if you're in the Zoom room and you haven't joined the Pear Deck, please click on the Pear Deck link that's shared in the chat. The other tool we're going to use throughout our time today is our workbook. This workbook is a Google document, and what you need to do when you click on that link is then click on File, Make a Copy. I've highlighted it here so you can see. That's how you'll open up your own copy of the Google workbook that you can type into. Yeah, so make sure you're able to do that. We will be using this for many of our exercises today. The workbook, though, also covers how, like, a lot of content about how to draft and structure your essay. It contains more sample essays and more resources that you can use to make the most of your college essay. So yes, those are the two resources, Pear Deck and workbook. One trick I learned recently to help me be fully present is turning my phone into do not disturb mode. It stops it from going zzz, zzz, zzz. And whenever I hear that sound, for me, it's like I get serious FOMO. I think I'm missing out on all my fun texts. I'm missing out on the news. So I turn all those sounds off to help me be fully present. Maybe that's a helpful tip for you.
Excuse me 1 second. I have a student that says the workbook is locked and asking for request.
Interesting. Let me see if I can, this link, I have the sharing settings set so that anyone on the internet with this link can view it. What that should mean is that if you paste that link, you should be able to at least view the document and then file, make a copy. Usually, again, I advise like trying a different browser can be helpful. Sometimes some browsers are less compatible with the Google documents than others. The other option is, Kate, if you're able to download a copy as a Word document, you could maybe get that student's email address and shoot it to them over as a quick attachment. That might be helpful as well as a last resort. Does that sound good? Awesome. All right, so you'll know that you're ready to start. I know we've taken a little time to get situated. You'll know that you're ready to start if you can hear my voice because you're present in the Zoom room. You can see the Pear Deck because you've joined it using the link in the chat. And you can access your workbook, which I know we're figuring out right now. And you can access your workbook and type into it. So those three things, hearing my voice, seeing the Pear Deck, accessing the workbook, that means we're good to go. Let's dive in. This is a good chance to test out our Pear Deck use. So I'm going to share the Pear Deck link in the chat. Oh, that's the Google Docs link. I'm going to share the Pear Deck link in the chat again. And as I'm doing that, what you can do is navigate over to your Pear Deck. And I would love to hear, coming into our time today, right? So showing up this morning, how confident do you feel about starting your college essay? And so what you can do in Pear Deck is you can click and drag the icon to somewhere on the spectrum that represents how you're feeling in terms of confidence coming into this college essay process. So far, we've had 25 students respond. I'm hoping to get about 45 responses in. So if you're not on the Pear Deck yet, you can navigate over to the Pear Deck now and share, how are you feeling in terms of confidence? We'll take about 15 more seconds to get answers. All right, we're going to close in 5, in 4, in 3, 2, and 1. All right, let's see how we did. So it looks like for the most part, students in our workshop today are clustered in the middle. We're not feeling like, what's a college essay? I have no idea what to do. We're not in that red section. We're not too many of us are in that green section feeling like, I got this, I got this, I got this. We've got a lot of students in here in sort of that middle area. My hope today is that our workshop can help, students, whether you're feeling confident or a little bit lost. Our workshop today should give you a sense of, how to take the next step in getting your college essay journey started. I'm going to be sharing a sample essay lots of brainstorming exercises, but then I'll also be sharing a resource at the end of our workshop that you can use to carry this work forwards. And hopefully that will support your work as well. So everyone hopefully leaves today a little bit closer to the green or even more confident in their college essay work. Second thing I would ask of you in the Pear Deck is a little bit of insight into what you're hoping to get out of this workshop today. You showed up here, it's summertime. You showed up on a summer morning to learn about the personal statement. And so what I would love to know is, why did you show up? What are you hoping to get out of this workshop? You're gonna have about 45 seconds to share your answer here. What are you hoping to get out of this workshop today? What do you want to learn? All right, I'm seeing a lot of students diving right in. Thank you to those students who are quick participators. We've got about 30 responses in Pear Deck. Love to see it. Take about 10 more seconds to share one thing you're hoping to get out of our workshop today. All right, so what are some things I'm seeing? What topics to write about? One student shared. We can definitely talk about some different kinds of topics you can choose. Having a better idea of what to include. Yep. Learning how to write a college essay. So we're going to be talking about mostly the brainstorming part of the process, but then the resources I share at the end of the workshop can give you tons of guidance on the actual writing process. Feeling more confident on the essay. Yep. How to find a good topic. Definitely. We're going to talk about different topics today. How to include my life experiences, how to impress admissions officers. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about how do you make your essay stand out. We'll definitely cover that. How to choose a topic. Yep, we're going to cover that. Getting some narrative ideas, really cool. How to phrase my thoughts. What makes a good college essay? We're definitely going to cover that. A better way to think about writing, how to get ideas, info on personal statements. Yeah, these are all things that we're going to tackle today. Our goals for today are to understand the purpose and importance of the personal statement, to learn what makes an outstanding college essay. We're going to complete some brainstorming exercises that will help us build a bank of topics and ideas. And we're going to preview 1 or 2 sample essays, depending on the amount of time we have. And then we'll also have time to talk about how do you take this to the next step. And I'll give some time for questions and answers as well. But I'd like to start by talking about your college application as a whole. You are all complex individuals who are made up of so many different memories and experiences, thoughts and values. And your college application is going to ask you to sort yourself into all of these neat little boxes, right? Who are you as you can share it in just a few different specific areas. The process of sorting yourself into these little boxes is a little bit weird. It can be a little awkward, right? Because you have to share so much of who you are through the lens of your activities list, through the lens of your GPA and your transcript and your test scores. But you also get a personal statement and supplemental essays to use. And so we're going to talk today about how to make the most of that main personal statement. What is the purpose of the college essay? Why are we writing it? What is the goal of this personal statement? Really, you want to show colleges in your personal statement that you will make an awesome college student, right? You're going to show colleges that you're someone who can show up on their campus and be a contributor, be a valuable member of their college campus community. Or if you're commuting to school, you're going to want them to know that you're someone who's going to show up every day in your classrooms, whether virtual or in person, and be someone who can contribute, who's going to be making the most of your education. How do you prove to colleges that you're that kind of student who's going to show up and contribute and engage? You prove that by demonstrating your skills, qualities, interests, values, and experiences that you're going to bring to college, right? In your personal statement, your goal is to highlight different sides of you, different values that you're going to bring to the college that will help you be a contributing member. A couple of misconceptions that students go into this process with that I want to avoid if we can. Some students think that their personal statement needs to list all the impressive things they've done again. But you don't need to do that in your personal statement as much because you have your activities list. So you don't want your personal statement to sound like just a list of all the activities and things you've done. That said, the personal statement is a place where you can mention and talk about some of the things you've done, but you want to do it in a more personal and interesting way than just kind of showing off your resume. I'll also say that many students come into this process thinking that they have to write about the most difficult thing they've ever experienced. They feel like, oh, what's the biggest challenge that I've overcome? The biggest obstacle I've had to get over? And how can I write about that and make that my story? And I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do that. You do not need to write about overcoming a challenge in your life if you don't want to. Some students haven't overcome a major challenge in their life. And you know what? I think that's probably a good thing, right? We don't need every young person to have overcome some substantial obstacle. And then there are some people who have overcome a really big obstacle in their life, but they don't want to make that their story. They don't want to make that the thing that they're sharing with colleges. And that's okay too. And then there's a third kind of student who has overcome a major challenge, and that's a story that they want to tell. And if that's the case, definitely write about it. If you have that story to tell, you can write about overcoming a challenge in your personal statement. But if you don't have that story to tell, either because you haven't overcome a massive obstacle or because you just don't want to write about it, that's okay. You can write a great college essay about almost any topic, about almost anything, so long as you are using it to highlight different meaningful sides of yourself. One quick example I give is I had a student write a really great essay about pairs of shoes. Her topic was shoes and how she, if you open her closet, you'll see like meticulously organized sort of shelves of a few pairs of shoes that have been meaningful to her in her life. But she used this topic of shoes to talk about all kinds of sides of her. She talked about one pair of shoes, the shoes she wore at her bat mitzvah, and how those shoes represent, becoming a woman in her faith community, and how Judaism has been important to her throughout her life. But then she also connected that to how she started to think in new ways about Judaism as she's learned more about the Israel-Palestine conflict. So she was able to connect it to an interest in a current event. Then she talked about another pair of shoes, the first pair of shoes that she bought for herself, and connected that to her value of independence and wanting to be able to provide for herself. And then she talked about a few other places where she's become independent, including being an independent learner as she pursued knowledge about, I can't remember, maybe it was physics, but she was writing about how she started to learn about physics on her own, even though it wasn't in a class. So she was talking about her independent learning as captured by this pair of shoes that she bought for herself. And then she talked about a third set of shoes, the first pair of shoes that she resold after she had bought them, and how that got her thinking about how she could make money buying and reselling shoes. And then she was able to build a small business out of this, and it tied to her value of entrepreneurship. And then she also connected that to getting into web design as she was designing websites and graphics and social media content for her small business. So you can see how it's an essay about shoes, but really it's an essay about current events and faith. It's an essay about independence and academics, and it's an essay about entrepreneurship and design. So any topic you can think of, as long as you can use it as a tool to connect to different rich sides of yourself, you can make it into a great personal statement. What else makes it a great personal statement? To me, you wanted to highlight the different sides of yourself that you want to share with a college, but you also wanted to have these 4 qualities. One is a great personal statement is vulnerable. It should have some vulnerability. It should be personal, right? It shouldn't feel like your perfect, polished, professional self. It should feel like you're giving the college application reader a chance to get to know you on a deeper level. Part of giving them that sense that they're getting to know you on a deeper level is that it should contain insight, right? When the person is reading it, they should be able to answer the question, so what? So why are you sharing this story with me? You're sharing this story with me because it showcases how you're someone who's a critical thinker, or it showcases how you're someone who's really good at recognizing patterns. It's showcasing how you're a person who's a great leader or a great connector or organizer. The person should understand at the end of the essay, sort of, why have you told them this story? What should they walk away with? The third quality of a great personal statement is that it should show your values, what drives you. And we're going to do an exercise in a little bit that will help you think about, what are my core values? What are those values that drive me? And then the last quality of a great personal statement that we emphasize is craft. It should be well written. And that doesn't just mean having the right grammar or the right punctuation. What it means to be well crafted and written well is that your piece should read like it was a thoughtfully written essay. It should have a clear beginning. It should end in a way that feels like it ties it all together. It should feel like a creative writing piece to a certain extent, not an analytical essay like you would normally write in a history or an English class. It should feel like a personal essay. And we'll look at some of the ways in a sample essay that a student brings that feeling of craft. But let's start with vulnerability. In your own words, what does vulnerability mean to you? In the Pear Deck, I would love for you to share when you hear this word vulnerability, what does that mean to you? So we're moving back over to the Pear Deck and we're sharing our thoughts there. We've already got our first 15 students responding. Love to see those students who are ready to rock and roll. Thank you for diving right in. Great, I'm seeing some great answers. In about 15 seconds, I'm going to start reading them out. But you can keep on typing because I get to the later answers later. Nice, I'm seeing some different takes on this too. Really fun to see all of your thoughts. So one student shared that vulnerability means being open and okay with sharing sides of yourself. Yeah, I think that's right. You want to be open and you want to share different sides of yourself that maybe aren't the most obvious based just on your transcript. Sharing how you're really feeling. Yep, showing a more personal side. Sharing flaws or things and experiences that have shaped you in a variety of ways. Yeah, you don't want to shy away from showing some humility in your personal statement. Do you want to write an essay all about my numerous flaws? No, that's not really the approach that we'd want to take. But it is okay in your essay to talk about things you've struggled with and maybe overcome, or a failure you've had that you then were able to learn from. Those are all acceptable things to talk about. Being open, yep. Talking about things that are personal. Absolutely. Showing different emotions. Yeah, talking about some of your feelings and some of those more emotional sides of you can totally work in a personal statement. Showcasing who you really are and being honest. Yep, being able to share something that you might not have said otherwise. Yeah, and allowing people to see different sides of you. That's really a theme that's coming up as I'm reading your answers. When you write your personal statement, it should feel like the reader is being let a little bit behind the curtain, right? One way I like to think of vulnerability, it's not about necessarily exposing your heart in like a way that's like bearing your soul, but I like to think of vulnerability of the mind, letting the reader see how you think, what makes your brain tick, right? So it's not necessarily vulnerability of like showing all your weaknesses, but it's about opening up the weird ways that you are you, the weird ways that you think and the ways that you identify yourself. I try and balance this push for vulnerability with one of the best pieces of writing advice I've gotten. I got this a few years ago. I was told to write from scars, not wounds. And what this means to me is that instead of writing from a place that's still an open wound, instead of writing about a content that's still really risky and sort of dangerous, it's better to write from scars. Scars are sort of experiences that have changed you, right? Yes, you have the scar, right? So you've been marked and changed forever, but it's not as dangerous right now. It's healed to a certain extent, and you're able to talk about it with a little bit of distance. So try and find that balance of being personal without feeling like you're writing about an open wound that will make someone sort of scared for you or nervous for you. With that in mind, we're going to start our first set of brainstorming exercises. I've locked the Pear Deck because we're actually going to do this work, the next few exercises, in our workbook. In your workbook, you can navigate down to page 2, where you'll see exercise 1, I love and I know. We're about to do a few exercises that have 2 goals. One is they're helping you to get into a vulnerable mindset, helping you get comfortable sharing the way your mind works in a way that is really authentically you. The second purpose of these exercises is to build that pile of stuff, that kind of stack of ideas that you might be able to use to find a topic for your personal statement. This exercise is called I Love, I Know. And the goal of this exercise is to just list as many things as you can that you love, and as many things as you can that you know a lot about. For example, you might love the ocean, the smell of clean laundry, the feeling of winning an argument. You might know a lot about board games, World War II history, constructed languages. Those are some examples of there. For me, I'm gonna model this exercise for about 30 seconds, just so you can get a sense of what it might sound like as you're doing it. So this is I Love, I Know, the Calvin version before you dive into yours. I love the feeling of abundance. I love a feeling of having more stuff than I could possibly use. I love collecting random little things. I love the feeling of having more time than I need. I love sharing the things I love with others. I love teaching people new games. And then I also love winning those games once I've taught it to them, if I'm honest. I know a lot about Burlington, the city that I live in. I know a lot about scuba diving. I know a lot about college essays. I know a lot about my dog and sort of the weird ways he tries to communicate with me. All right, simple, right? Just go into your Google workbook and we're gonna take the next 90 seconds to just write as many things as we can that we know a lot about and that we love. So we're in the Google workbook on page 2, completing the I Love, I Know exercise for 90 seconds that start right now. What are some things that you love? And if you're a counselor or a teacher, feel free to do these exercises as well. You can help sort of know what your students have been thinking about, the same process they've gone through. What are some things you know a lot about? Like, what would you give your TED talk on, you know? Try and keep your fingers moving for the full time that you are doing this exercise. Try and keep on typing. No answer is too big or too small. You might know a lot about yourself, right? Maybe you could share a little bit about that. Keep that list going. We're about halfway through our time. In the last 45 seconds, it'll get harder. Try and keep your fingers moving and keep typing away. You have about 30 more seconds, and then we're going to be sharing all together. All right, when you're ready, you can move back over to the Pear Deck, and you can share one thing you know a lot about and one thing you love. You could also just paste your whole response. If that's easier for you, you can copy and paste the work you did into the Pear Deck, or you can choose one thing you know and one thing you love. As a reminder, anything you share in the Pear Deck, I might share out. I won't associate it with your name. I'll simply share out the content, but if it's something that you don't want shared publicly, it's something that maybe you shouldn't put into your into the Pear Deck. When you're ready, we're moving from the workbook back to the Pear Deck to share some examples of things you know a lot about and things you love. All right, let's take I'm gonna let students submit their answers for a minute, and then I'll start to share some of the cool answers I'm seeing. I love seeing all the diverse answers we get here. Really cool. All right, so some of the things I'm seeing that I'm really enjoying. One student shared that they love and know a lot about anime. I actually worked with a student once on an essay where their personal statement was about some of the most formative animes that they saw. They talked about 3 different animes that were really important to them. And very little of the essay was about the anime, because most of the essay was about sort of the values they associated with each of these. The first anime they talked about was one that had a super simplistic drawing style. It was like a very minimalist animation style. And they talked about how that sort of helped them realize how much meaning small little things can have. basically finding a way to like appreciate simplicity. And then they were able to talk about how that helped them on the debate team, when instead of trying to come up with really complicated arguments that would win for them, they actually started valuing the simplest argument, and they were able to apply it there. Then they talked about an anime that had a really amazing soundtrack, and how the music played such a vital role in the whole story coming together. And they talked about how that helped them as a dancer, right? And sort of connected to their value of finding the meaning in the music, and how music can help tell a story, and how that changed the way that they approached dancing and choreographing, right? So that was a really cool essay that was all about, anime, and connected to it in surprising ways. So one student shared, I love trying new things, and I know a lot about cars. I love the idea of writing about cars for your personal statement. Especially if you're someone who's done some really cool work on cars, you could write about how the different parts of the car maybe align with different sides of you, right? What is your engine, right? What drives you? What the wheels are the friction on the road, without the wheels grounding you to the road, the car wouldn't go anywhere. So what grounds you? What keeps you connected maybe to your identity or your community? You could talk about, the steering wheel and having to, make decisions about where to go. What are your priorities? What are your goals in life? How do you steer, your way through each day of your life? You could write a cool kind of extended analogy essay about cars. We had a student share, I know a lot about the NBA. Me too. NBA playoffs, finals going on right now. A number of students shared some of their favorite smells. I've actually worked with students on essays that are just each body paragraph, really short, one of their favorite smells, connected it to a memory that was meaningful to them, and then shared like what value does that memory embody that's important to them. Really cool essay, kind of poetic actually. Let's see, let's choose one more to share. I know a lot of random facts. I love that. I love the idea of like just knowing a bunch of random facts. You could even write an essay that's built around some of your favorite random facts. If you can creatively unpack what value does that random fact represent, right? And then building connections that way. Really cool ideas. Definitely save this exercise, because a number of students that I've worked with have ultimately found their personal statement topic by doing this exercise. They end up writing about something they know or love a lot. And I'll show you, we have some resources specifically on how to write that kind of essay that I'll share at the end. All right, our second exercise is called If You Really Knew Me. This is a sort of straightforward one as well. I'm gonna lock the Pear Deck because we're gonna do this in our workbook again. We're back in our workbook, and this is If You Really Knew Me. All you really need to do in this one, and I'm gonna give us 1 minute in just a second, is to come up with a couple of statements. What would people know about you if they really knew me? If they really knew you? So for me, I think, if you really knew me, you would know that I come across as really, really extroverted and really like energized by communicating with others, but I also really need alone time to recharge. And if you really knew me, you would know that I desperately seek out the approval of others. And that's sort of how I stay motivated. But if you really knew me, you would also know that I've been working really hard on developing my ability to provide that kind of confidence for myself and be able to self-validate and grow in that way. So those are some things, if you really knew me, you would know. Your turn now. I'm going to give us 1 full minute to try and think, if you really knew me, what would you know? Try and come up with 1 or 2 answers in the 1 minute of work time in your workbook on page 2. If you really knew me, what would you know? About 30 more seconds to come up with a couple of statements. If you really knew me, what would you know? And when you're ready, you can move over to the Pear Deck and you can share one of those statements. If you really knew me, what would you know? Remember to maintain our awareness of writing from scars, not wounds. Anything you share here, I may read out loud to the group, but I won't associate it with your name. So we're moving now, as our minute concludes, back from the workbook to the Pear Deck. If you really knew me, what would you know? I'm seeing a lot of really, really meaningful answers here. I would love to see a few more students respond. If you really knew me, what would you know? If you really knew me, you would know that I like the feeling of being part of something bigger than myself. I love that. That's a beautiful sentiment to bring into your personal statement. That drive you have to be a part of something bigger, to be a part of communities, be a part of meaningful work. If you really knew me, you would know that my face gets red when I'm nervous and there's a lot of attention on me. If you really knew me, you would know that I don't like eating stuff from Ziplocs or containers. That's an interesting one. I like that, right? That's like, if you really knew me, you'd know that. I can imagine an essay where you actually started out writing about that really random fact about yourself, right? If you really knew me, you'd know that I don't like eating stuff from Ziplocs or containers. And maybe you could pivot that to this idea that you're someone who's very particular, right? And then you could explore what are some of the other things that you're really particular about, especially if you can connect those things you're particular about to some of those sides of you that you really want to showcase to colleges. If you really knew me, you would know that I care about the well-being of others in my surroundings. If you knew me, you would know that I overthink my interactions with people. That's an interesting one too. One kind of essay we've seen students write is an essay that I like to call like a superpower essay, where you can take a quality of yours and talk about it like it's a superpower. And maybe for you, overthinking is your superpower. It sounds sort of like it would be a challenge, but instead you could reframe it as like, how has overthinking things helped you grow? Right? You could also acknowledge in some places how it's been a challenge and you're working on it, but you could also say that overthinking has really helped me, learn a lot about connecting with people. It's helped me learn a lot about how people think. It's helped me, make really smart plans for my future. You could bring a lot of that kind of overthinking as a superpower into the essay. If you really knew me, you would know that I find validation in doing things that are epic. I love this idea of epicness. Maybe your superpower is finding the epicness in everyday life, right? And you could write about how you do that in different parts of your life, different meaningful communities you're a part of or groups you're a part of. I love seeing that. If you really knew me, you would know that I'm rarely ever embarrassed. I can see that as a superpower essay too. Right? These sides of you that you're writing about here, those if you really knew me sides, those are the kinds of things that often can make your personal statement feel like it has that sense of vulnerability. Now, you don't need to say out loud over and over again, like, oh, if you really knew me this, if you really knew me that, but try and bring this kind of energy to your personal statement. Try and bring the sides of you that those people know that are closest with you. Maybe those sides of yourself that you're proud of, but you have a hard time sharing, right? Who is this kind of core you, this central you that is going to show up and be able to contribute on a college campus? One last one I'll share is if you really knew me, you would know how much I love to take naps throughout the day. I love that. Maybe like that connects to this value of self-care, of knowing yourself, of knowing your limits, right? These are all the kinds of characteristics that I think will make you a great college student as well. Let's move on to our third exercise. This is our last long one. We're getting close to our break time. This exercise is called the Essence Objects exercise. This is still in our workbooks. We're going to move on to page 3, the Essence Objects exercise. In this exercise, you're asked to write about some meaningful objects to you. You want to make a list of objects that sort of represent an important relationship of yours, quality of yours, value of yours. And then you're going to want to share just a brief sentence, a quick statement, not even a full sentence, but a brief statement on why that object is meaningful to you. So I'll give you, these are some examples from myself. One of my Essence objects is a painted rock that my father gave to me when I was younger. He and I have had sort of a complicated relationship over the years, and sometimes I lose sight of the ways that he cares about me and the ways that he loves me. But What I do know is that when I look at this rock and when I hold this rock, I'm reminded, because of the intricate details that he put into it and the clear amount of effort he put into making this gift for me, I'm reminded of the fact that he really does care, and he just, has different ways of showing it than maybe I expect. Another one of my essence objects is my ukulele, because when I got that when I was actually 18 and have been playing it ever since, and I play it a lot with my family and friends, and it reminds me of my ability to learn new things and my love of creating experiences that others can join. It sort of connects to my value of inclusivity. I love to play songs that everyone knows and get everyone singing along. And so it connects to that value. That's a meaningful object to me. I'm going to give us 2 full minutes for this exercise. And what I want you to think of is, what are some meaningful objects in your life? They don't even need to be like objects you can hold. They can be huge objects. They can be smells or memories. They can be places if you want. Try and think of, what are some objects that are meaningful to you in your life? Your 2 minutes has already started. So hopefully you're in your workbook, typing away. You could think of an object that reminds you of home, or an object that makes you feel safe and secure. Maybe you have an object that represents a challenge that you've faced and overcome. Or maybe it's an object that represents a failure. You can include an object that captures a goal you have for the future, maybe a dream you have. Maybe it's an object that you're going to save for a future child or loved one or family member, something you want to pass down. What are some collections you have? Collections can be really rich essay content for sure. Collections can often form great extended analogies. Maybe it's the best gift you've ever gotten. Or maybe it's a lame gift that you've kept for some weird reason. Maybe it's an object that you brought back from a trip you took. What's a food that reminds you of your family? That could be an object as well. Maybe there's an object that represents sort of an academic or an area that you've learned a lot about, a specific topic that you've loved learning about. Maybe it's an object that just makes you happy to look at. You have about 30 more seconds. You can always look around your room. What do I have right here that's meaningful to you? And when you're ready, you can share 1 or 2 of those objects in the Pear Deck. And I'd love for you to share it with that short little snippet of why it's meaningful to you. Some of you are writing really great things. I love this one because there's often really rich examples. Really cool stuff. I'm seeing some great answers here. If you haven't had a chance to share on the Pear Deck, we're moving back over there, and you can share 1 or 2 of the items that are meaningful to you. A lot of you are sharing excellent answers here. I'm going to share some of them out. Answers that could immediately become awesome essays. All right. Some of the answers that I'm seeing are really beautiful. So someone shared, I've kept almost every birthday card I've ever received, because knowing that others care for me makes me happy, and it motivates me to be more caring in return. I can imagine a personal statement where you opened by talking about the fact that you keep every birthday card you've ever received. Then maybe your body paragraphs could be a quick, super short anecdote of different meaningful birthdays you've had, right? And what those birthdays represented. Maybe it's a story of something that happened on that birthday. Maybe it's something that changed when you became that age. And you could use sort of those stories about your past to connect to who you are right now, bringing it into the present. One student shared that I have a pressed pennies collection. My mom collected them and now we get them on every vacation. And I can imagine a personal statement that talked about some of those different pressed pennies that connect to different vacations. And again, instead of writing just about the vacation, you would want to zoom out and think, what does that vacation represent to me? This was the vacation where I learned that I had a passion for environmentalism and sustainability. Or this was the vacation where, I went out and where I was the one who got to plan a whole day of the vacation. And I realized that I love event planning and I love organizing and researching. And I've actually applied those skills in these other ways, right? But you could use those pressed pennies as your sort of framing device, right? That sort of topic that allows you to connect to all different parts of you. Let's see, what else did we get? A box of trinkets for my trip to France. Yeah, any sort of collection of things can make a great extended analogy. I planned the entire trip myself, and it was the best vacation I've taken with my family. Yeah, I can see how talking about that box of trinkets and how the different objects connect to different moments on the trip, maybe that you planned, you could use that to talk about your value of planning and organizing. Maybe you had a plan that totally got blown up and you weren't actually able to do it, right? And maybe that helped you learn about the value of like adapting on the fly. You could write about things like that. Ooh, my skincare products. I bring them with me wherever I go, and my routine creates familiarity when there's change occurring in my life or if I'm in a new place. I love that. You could open your essay sort of with a description, a cool description of that routine you have, that sort of like really calming, centering routine of skincare. And then you could pivot to what are the other routines that are meaningful to you in your life, and what have they helped you learn, and how have they helped you kind of stay grounded. Last one I'll share is my can collection. My dad loves to tease me about it. That's really fun. Yeah, like a can collection too. Where do those cans come from? How do they connect to different sides of you? All of that can be great, great, great content. Definitely save. Ooh, okay, last one, because these are all so good. I love getting to read about these. Last one I'll share is someone shared the my MP3 player because it brings back nostalgic times and music that brings me memories. I've worked with students on essays about playlists, right? Where they're actually, it's a sort of simple, straightforward essay, but it's sort of like a playlist of like the most meaningful songs in their life. They connect that to memories and experiences they had, and they use that to talk about sort of what they learned from those experiences and kind of how those experiences shaped who they are. I also have my old iPod from when I was in high school, and it is one of my most treasured possessions because I can put it on and it just brings me immediately back to all these rich, rich memories. Music is a really cool topic to write about for sure. Our last exercise we're going to do before we dive into second to last exercise, but our last exercise before our short break is the values exercise. In your workbook on page 4, I'm going to give us 2 minutes to complete the values exercise. You're simply reading through this list of values and thinking, out of all of these, which are my top 10? Which of these values are my 10 most important values to me? Then, if you're an overachiever, you're going to be someone who tries to then find your top 5 values and maybe even your top 3. So you have 2 minutes on the clock. We're going to read through this list and we're going to think, what are my top 10 values? You could put those in bold. You could underline your top 5 and maybe italicize your top 3. These can be values that you feel like have defined your whole life, or they can be values that are sort of new to you, but are really important right now in this moment in your life. They could be values that you aspire to. Maybe you're not there yet, but they guide a lot of your decision making. I may not be great at communication now, but it's an important value to me because I'm working on it. So yeah, it can be historical values, present values, aspirational values. Which of these many values are the 10 that feel most important to you? Once you have your top 10, you can start to think, what are some of my top 5 or top 3? Maybe there's one that you feel like is the one driving value that you have. You have about 40 more seconds to review this list and see what are these resonant values for me. When you're ready, you can go to the Pear Deck and you can click and drag the icon, the star icon, next to one of your top 3 or top 5 values. So you're clicking and dragging the star somewhere on one of your top values. You could place it on the checkbox. You could place it to the right of the word. You could place it right on top of the word where the letters are, where you kind of put it on top of the T or on top of the E. Oops, sorry about that. But what you're doing is you're going into the Pear Deck and you're dragging the icon to one of the values that's in your top 3 or top 5. And if you can think of like your number 1 for real, that would be amazing. But that can be really hard. Not everyone has that one core value. We're at about 20 students who have dragged the star to their value. I would love to get that closer to 40 out of the 50 people who are in our Pear Deck. So if you're still working in your workbook, please pop back over to the Pear Deck and share out what's one of your top values. I'm going to close the response in about 10 seconds. So you got about 10 seconds to drag that star next to one of your top values. I'm going to close it in 5, in 4, in 3, 2, and 1. All right, so these stars are really small, but you can see that we're starting to get a few shared values in our community and some that help people stand out. So it looks like helping others is definitely something that many of us feel is really important. We're also getting a lot around family, love, but then we're seeing a lot of diversity here too: flexibility, leadership, growth, self-love, curiosity, stability. That's a beautiful one. Stability as a core value. That's a really cool one. I haven't seen that a lot. Humor, self-expression, adaptability. That's one of my core values for sure. Adaptability has been one of my top 3. Responsibility, close relationships, really awesome stuff. What I love about this exercise is that, yes, many people in the community have shared values, right? There are lots of these that will overlap. Many of my top 10 will overlap with someone else's top 10. But my guess is that even in this group of people, no one has an identical top 5 values. No, absolutely no one in this group would have an identical top 10 values, right? If you can infuse your personal statement with your values, you're almost guaranteed to stand out because our values are really unique to us, right? And so if you're able, when you're writing your personal statement, to find a way to connect whatever you're writing about to these unique values that you're bringing to the table, your set of values that make you you, that drive you every day, you're almost guaranteed to stand out and have an outstanding personal statement. This is a useful exercise to kind of get you in touch with what sides of yourself you may want to bring into your essay, but it's also a great evaluative tool at the end of your process. When you have a full draft of your personal statement, come back to your values exercise and do a values scan and say, are these values that I know are important to me, are they showing up in my essay? And if they are, then you'll know that you've done some good work. And if they're not, then you might want to go back and consider, maybe I want to revise this essay to showcase more of these really important values to me. We're going to take a 2-minute break before we dive into the last third of our workshop. So at 11:02, we're going to come back together and we're going to sort of synthesize all of our work so far and get a chance to look at a sample essay. All right, I will see you in 2 minutes at 11:02. We're back at our computers. All right, that was a short break, as we know, but I do want to make sure we have time to get into our sample essay and make sure that we have time for me to onboard you to this tool that I'm going to share at the end of our time. If you are here, if you are a human in front of a computer for real, if you could just use any reaction on Zoom, the thumbs up, the hands up, literally any Zoom reaction to let me know that you're at your computer, that would be great. I really appreciate it, just so that I know that students are back from the break. So if you can just give that thumbs up reaction, that check reaction, really, truly, any reaction will do. That'll help me know that most people are back at their computers and ready to go. Awesome, I'm seeing that happen across the board. We're gonna, in a minute, we're gonna do some synthesis of the work we've done so far. We're gonna start to think about how does this all kind of come together. In order to prep us for that, I'm actually going to share a video clip with you. Let me see if I can make this happen with the sound. So sharing the sound. Kate, if when I start the video, if you could just give me a thumbs up if the sound is working, that would be awesome. This is a clip from a movie called Inside Out. You don't need to know that much about it. Really, what we're gonna see is the interior life of a young girl named Riley, where we're able to see her emotions as characters. And they're gonna introduce us to this idea of core memories and islands of personality. And as you watch, we're going to hear about Riley's islands of her personality. And what I want to hear about from you in just a minute is, what are your islands of personality? All right. So that's what you can keep in mind as we launch.
Anyway, these are Riley's memories, and they're mostly happy, you'll notice, not to brag. But the really important ones are over here. I don't want to get too technical, but these are called core memories. Each one came from a super important time in Riley's life, like when she first scored a goal. Oh, that was so amazing.
Hey, would you look at that? Very nice.
And each core memory powers a different aspect of Riley's personality, like Hockey Island. Goofball Island is my personal favorite.
Come back here, you little monkey. Oh, you're silly.
Yep, Goofball is the best. Friendship Island is pretty good too. Oh, I love Honesty Island. And that's the truth. And of course, Family Island is amazing.
I thought it'd be a puzzle.
The point is, the islands of personality are what make Riley, Riley.
Look out!
All right. So Riley's islands of personality are some of those core aspects that make up who she is. They're connected to her values. They're connected to her interests. What I would like you to do in your workbook, so now we're going to move down to page 5, is try and identify what might be some of your islands of personality. And they can be things that you love or know. They can also be values or places or experiences. You don't need to think in that sense of just things you love and know, but that can be a helpful place to start. What might 2 to 4 of your islands of personality be? Then you can think, if you have the time and you want to go above and beyond, you can think, what values from that exercise we did before the break, what values are connected to that island, right? So for me, one of my islands would be Board Games Island. I love games, really just Games Island. I love games like ping pong. I love games like weird card games that I learned from my family. I love board games. And when I think of Games Island, I think of that it connects to my values of excellence, my values of strategic thinking, and my value of inclusivity, and my value of family. All of those are things that I could connect to this idea of games. What are your islands of personality, and what values might be connected to those? Take 2 minutes in your workbook to try and think of a few of your islands of personality. If you need to go back to look at the values list, it is still on page 4 of your workbook. And so that can be a helpful place to go and see which of these connect to some of these core sides of who I am. Maybe one of your islands is actually a value, right? Maybe like Honesty Island was for Riley. Maybe, let's see. Maybe Adaptability Island is a real island of your personality. In that case, instead of thinking of different values it connects to, you can think of where does adaptability show up in your life? What are some of those things that feel connected to Adaptability Island? You have about another 30 seconds for this exercise. And then we're going to look at an essay that actually came to life by doing this exercise. All right, you can wrap up your writing on one of those. Instead of sharing it out, I think I'm gonna move on to an essay that actually came to life by when a student was doing this Islands of Personality exercise. This is a sample essay called This Is Me. I'm gonna read the essay out loud. And what I want you to kind of keep in mind are two things as I read. One, how are we seeing some of these brainstorming exercises come to life, right? Are we seeing any of these essence objects, any of these things that the student knows or loves a lot about, or loves? Also, are we seeing vulnerability and values in craft? And then lastly, and this is the question that I'll actually want responses to, I think, is what do we like about this essay? What makes this essay work? All right, the essay is actually over multiple slides. It's not just this one paragraph. Each slide is 1 or 2 paragraphs, but it's all one student. I've given this essay the title of This Is Me. You don't need a title for your essay. It's just useful as a workshop facilitator to call it something. So this one is This Is Me. You can read along. And remember, we're thinking, what makes this essay work? What do I like about it? And how are the brainstorming exercises coming to life? I am Mexican. The sound of frying empanadas and the smell of burning peppers, my mother calling me mi vida, and my relatives kissing my cheek, running but never hiding from the dreaded chancla and always responding with, muy bien, ¿y tú? Childhood vacations to Puebla and Cancun, swimming in the ocean and playing in the sand, feeling the need to be good at cross country, feeling the need to be able to endure spicy. Those are all me. I'm Chinese, the utter preference for using chopsticks in every scenario, and the unhealthy craving for rice with every meal. The sharing of every dish placed on the center turntable, hot pot for celebration, and tea eggs of all things is a favorite dish. My father's musical Cantonese conversations with my grandparents, and their constant inquiry asking, how is school? Being named after the dragon for strength, and living for 3 years in Shanghai. The constant pressure to get good grades, my father's desire for me to be a doctor, and the never-ending, how are you so bad at math? You're Asian. Those are all me. I am American, a citizen with the freedom to vote, the freedom to speak my mind, and the representation by all the cultures and countries of the world. Shopping sprees at Target and a constant diet of fast foods, full acceptance of the consumer society, and a rather unhealthy addiction to social media and technology. Going to football games on Friday nights and watching Netflix on Saturday nights, always watching my weight, always looking at others, always wishing, always wanting for more. Those are all me. I'm Catholic. Sunday mornings always spent at church, the private Catholic middle and high schools, each with masses for special occasions, baptism, Eucharist, and confirmation, praying before each meal and saying, go away in the name of Jesus to nighttime horrors. Theology classes, and realizing there's so much more to religion than faith. Having something to believe in, questioning what you believe in. turning to God when I see the horrors in the world and getting no response. Those are all me. I'm homosexual, an unusual obsession with fashion and clothing, watching Game of Thrones, not for Daenerys or Cersei, but for Jon Snow and Jaime. Seeing Love, Simon for the first time and crying at least 5 times, always conscious, always thinking before talking. Going to an all-boys school and dealing with gay being the go-to expression for displeasure. Being called a faggot when I act gay. Fear of my parents finding out. Those are all me. I am Jonathan K. Leung Eng. I love reading, and I'm addicted to fan fiction. I have 3 siblings and love my 2 dogs more than anything in the world. I can't eat spicy food, and I have the biggest sweet tooth. I play League of Legends and soccer. I'm a Marvel geek and a theater nerd. My friends call me Jenga. My teammates call me Cheng. My teachers call me Mr. Eng. I am Mexican, I am Chinese, I am American, I am Catholic, I am gay, I am all of this and more, and most of all, I am me. My identity is not a singular entity, but a conglomeration of experiences, beliefs, and origins. This is my identity. This is me. As that essay is echoing around in our heads and we're reflecting on it, I would love for you to share in the Pear Deck. What is one thing you liked about this essay? What are some things that you liked about this essay as you were hearing it? We can share our thoughts in the Pear Deck. We'll take about a minute to gather some of your thoughts, and then I'll share out some of your answers. All right, what are some things that we liked? Some of you are calling out the things that I love about this essay. Really great. Okay, I'm going to share out some of these things. The first thing that stands out to me about this essay that I really love is something that one of you called out, the use of repetition. And one of you actually put it even more specifically. You said, I like the parallel structure that the author employed, right? Every paragraph started with something and kind of concluded in a similar way. And I love that about this essay. I think that one thing that makes this essay really great is that sort of sense of craft. There's repetition in the structure, right? Every paragraph opens the same way. And so that repetition helps us, kind of get a sense of where the essay is going. It makes it feel really thoughtful. But I also love the repetition in, let me see, this paragraph, the I am American paragraph. The student also uses repetition within the paragraph, saying, always watching my weight, always looking at others, always wishing, always wanting for more. That repetition of the phrase always, I think is a really powerful way to use repetition. And repetition is a strategy you can use in your personal statement to basically, give it that sense of craft. A lot of you also noticed that it had a really strong structure, right? Let me see, one of you had a really beautiful comment about this. But you notice that it has really clear and distinct sections that make the essay flow, right? This student, the topic of their essay is clearly like different, like my identities, the different sides of my identity. And then they're able to structure it around those different identities and really bring them to life. And a lot of you also noticed that they brought it to life, they brought it to life using really specific details. The specificity was really nice, right? He didn't just say, I am Chinese. He was able to name some of those experiences of his that brought his Chinese identity to life. So yeah, and I also think that it has a good level of vulnerability, right? It's definitely vulnerable, but in a way that feels safe. It feels like he's really being honest and authentic, but it doesn't feel inappropriate. And so I share this because I think that this essay is a great example of an essay that is really well structured and has that level of vulnerability and shares a lot of his values. We have time to look at one other sample. So I think it could be fun to look at a sample that we call the laptop essay. This essay is in your workbook. So what I would love you to do is on page 13 of your workbook, you're going to find the laptop essay. I am going to give us 2 minutes to read this essay independently in our workbook. All right, so we're on page 14 of, maybe it's 13 of the workbook. Yeah, page 13. 14 is endodontics. So on page 13 of the workbook, you can read the laptop essay. It opens with my laptop is like a passport. And what I would love you to do is read that essay and think, what do you like about this essay? What makes this essay work? This is another kind of montage essay. This is an essay that was made using the essence objects exercise. And you'll see in this essay how one of those essays about collections can come to life. So I'm going to give us 2 minutes, 2 minutes to read the laptop essay, and then I'm going to have you share back out. Then I'm going to have you share back out what you liked about it in the Zoom chat this time, either privately or openly. But you have 2 minutes. I'll give you maybe 3 to read this laptop essay and think, what do I like about this? Your 2 minutes has already begun. If you finish reading early, you can check out the essay below it as well, the endodontics essay. As you finish reading, I would love for you to go into the Zoom chat. I didn't actually create a slide for this because I wasn't sure we would have time, but in the Zoom chat, either in a direct message to me, either as a direct message to me or a message to everyone, you can share what's something that you liked about the laptop stickers essay. And then Wendy, I'll answer your question in just a second. So as you finish reading, you can share something you liked about this essay in the Zoom chat, either to me or to the group. Either one works. And then we'll share out some of the things we're noticing about this essay. And then I'll answer some questions, including the one I just got from Wendy. What are some things you liked about this essay as you finish reading it? You can share them in the Zoom chat. I'm seeing some good answers come in. I'll give us another minute or two to finish reading and share what did we like about this essay in the Zoom chat. Again, you can share it as a direct message to me. One thing that came up already in a student's response to me is that they loved the humor in the essay. And I think that's great. Your essay, as I mentioned at the beginning, it doesn't have to be some super serious essay about the hardest thing you've ever dealt with in your life. Your essay can be fun. It can be playful. And this essay, I think, has some good humor in it, and it's a fun topic, right? They're able to touch on serious things like the advocacy work that they want to do, some of the social justice issues that are important to them. But at the same time, they're able to bring that humor in. I also love this essay because it's another example of how you can use a really clear idea to structure your essay. Here, it's different stickers on the laptop. In the earlier essay, it was different sides of your identity. Another student noticed, I like how the person discusses several different aspects of their life and doesn't just focus on one topic. And I think that's a great thing to do in your personal statement. Even if you do have one topic you really want to talk about, finding ways to connect that topic to many different sides of you is important. You want to showcase as many rich sides of you as possible in your personal statement. Another student noticed they liked that the essay had personality. The essay had repetition again, and the really vivid imagery to map out the stickers. Another thing I liked about this is that they didn't just do the stickers idea, they also came up with a fun idea of how to kind of unify it under one theme, which is that the stickers are like a passport, right? And so they're able to open the essay talking about this idea of the stickers as a passport that mark where they've been and what they've been interested in. And then they're able to close it with a conclusion that returns to this idea of the passport. And in that way, we get kind of this clear beginning and end. One question I got from Wendy is, should the This Is Me essay have shown more intellectual curiosity? That's an interesting point, right? We do want our personal statements sometimes to showcase some of those things that we're curious about intellectually, right? Not just the personal side, but also our intellectual interests. I would say that that is definitely something to bring into your essay, especially if the rest of your application doesn't highlight your academic interests as much. The This Is Me essay might work best for a student who's writing their supplemental essays about academic interests that they have, right? Their intellectual vitality, their intellectual side, maybe it's showcased through their activities list because so many of their activities are academic clubs, right? Or, programs that they've been a part of that tap into that academic vitality and intellectual vitality, right? As I said earlier, you want your application, all those boxes you have to fill, right? You want them to showcase different sides of you. So you can be strategic in your personal statement. If you think, what parts of me aren't going to come out in my activities list and my supplemental essays and my transcript or my resume? What sides of me might be invisible if I don't include them here? And I think that would be my guess as to how the student arrived at the identity-based essay. It's likely that the intellectual vitality came to life in another part of his application. But I think that is a great point, and you'll definitely want to review your whole application to make sure that you're touching on all those different sides of you. I want us to sort of close out our workshop with a couple of things. The first thing I'd love to hear is, in the Pear Deck, what's one thing you feel like you learned about college essays after our workshop today? One thing you're walking away with that you learned about college essays? I'm seeing some great answers coming in. Music to my ears, people. Some of you are sharing that you can make any topic into a great college essay. And that's true so long as you're tying it to those values of yours and you're using it to highlight different sides of you. Yep, connect the essay with your values and experiences. Write from scars, not wounds. I love that. I love that. It doesn't have to be so serious, and that's true. An amazing essay can include objects and memories. It can be about personal experiences, and that's true. And what you want to highlight is you want to use those personal experiences to highlight some of those amazing qualities of yours. So like you want to talk about personal experiences, but you want to make sure that you're doing it intentionally. What do those personal experiences show about you, right? And some of that can be tied, like Wendy had asked about, to this idea of intellectual vitality, right? You might want to showcase a side of you that is curious about nuclear physics, and maybe you find a way to connect that in, but you want to be weaving it all in through these personal connections. Definitely. Untraditional topics can stand out. Yes, the best topics are going to be uncommon topics. A lot of students will write an essay about their soccer team, right? And so if you're going to write your essay about soccer, you're going to want to make sure that you make really unique connections to soccer, because that's a little bit of a common topic, right? So uncommon topics can be best, But if you don't have an uncommon topic, you can still stand out with uncommon connections and writing with uncommon language. Try and be unique. Yep, I think being unique is a great one. Tying your essay to your values and put personality into your writing. I think all of those are great things to walk away with. I'm going to share a link in the chat now that will give you access to a tool that can help guide some of your work from now until you're done. We call this our Choose Your Own Adventure tool. If you use the link that I just shared in the chat, and it's important to use the link in the chat, you will be able to access this tool for free. As part of being in this workshop, you get free access to this Choose Your Own Adventure tool. Please click the link. It will ask you to, let me see if I can get back to here. It'll ask you to register and create an account. That's what you'll use to log into this tool whenever you want to use it. So feel free right now to click on this link. For the counselors in the room, I will share this link as part of my follow-up to this workshop. So students who aren't able to access it now, they can access it moving forward. This tool is the Choose Your Own Adventure tool. Let's actually pull it up so that we can see. The Choose Your Own Adventure tool has guidance for you across all different parts of the essay process. So if you're writing about overcoming a challenge, you're going to want to use this narrative path. We talk about essays of two types: narrative essays about overcoming a challenge, and then montage essays like the ones that we read that aren't about overcoming a challenge, right? But this will give you a guide basically from the very beginning of your process all the way through brainstorming, outlining and writing, revising and refining. It's a series of videos and activities, articles to read, different mindsets you can try and embody that will help you along your journey writing your essay. But if you're a student who loves the kind of big resources that you can use and explore, all this stuff will be a really helpful place for you to come. If you're a student who doesn't like to use sort of structured processes, you can still get value out of this tool by looking at our essay examples. Here we have a whole set of example essays that you can read that'll help you get a sense of all the different ways that you can write great essays. Some of these are about overcoming challenges, this whole column. Some of these are not about overcoming challenges, this whole column. And you'll find that the montage style essays are labeled with what kind of essay they are. So there are a few different types of montage essays we've seen students write very often. They're kind of outlined here. And so you can see that from the essence objects exercise, there are two essays that we share that real students wrote, including the laptop one we already read. And then you can also see the This Is Me essay is sort of an identity-based essay. And there are many other examples that you can explore. So please take the time to, I'm going to share the link in the chat again. Please take the time to open that up and register so you can use this in the future. And then we can end with taking up, we already did that at peace. We can end with some questions. If you have any questions for me as we end this workshop, you can share those questions in the Pear Deck and I can address them one by one as they come in. Otherwise, I will be sharing out the recording of this, a link to the workbook, and a link to the Choose Your Own Adventure tool, as well as those sample essays a little bit later today. The first question I got is, can we use one essay for multiple applications? The answer to that is absolutely. So your personal statement, your college essay, you can use that to apply to any school on the Common App. The Common App is one application you can complete online that then allows you to apply to very many different schools through that one portal. Your personal statement or college essay will likely go to every school you apply to. There are some schools that don't require it. There are some that have special applications, but for the most part, this will go to every school. Another question, when should we be done with a final draft of this essay? The most important deadline for this is the application deadline. But I would say that you don't want to push too close to the deadline when you need to submit your whole application with your essay. When I work with students one-on-one, my goal is to have a final draft of the college essay done before starting school in the fall. I think summertime between junior and senior year is a great time to do this work because you have a little more headspace. You're not in the throes of senior year trying to get it all done. I would say around October would be the latest that I think it would be great to have a final draft of your essay because your early decision applications will likely be due in November. Some schools are even earlier than that, but for the most part, that November deadline is going to be a real one. Another question I'm getting now is, would you say the personal statement or college-specific supplements are more important? I'd say they're all equally important. And the reason I say that is because all of them are contributing to this bigger picture of you. The way to make the most of them is to avoid overlap. So if your whole personal statement is about the lessons you learned, you know, as a member of the debate team, right? Then you wouldn't want to write about debate for your supplements because then you're just being repetitive. You're not showcasing a new side of you. So definitely my answer to your question is which is more important? The answer is both of them are very important. And you can make the most of them by trying to highlight different sides of yourself. I'll stick around for another minute to see if other questions come in, but thank you all for your time in the workshop today. Thank you all for participating so fully. And I, again, will be sharing these resources out, and I hope you're able to use the Choose Your Own Adventure tool and the sample essays to really take your essay writing to the next level this year. Kate, any closing thoughts from the school team?
I think this was excellent. Thank you so much. I learned a lot.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you for being such an attentive co-host and for helping make all of this happen.
Of course. My pleasure. Thank you.
Cool. You'll be hearing from me shortly and your college counseling team with all these resources. And again, I had a great time. If you have questions, reach out to your counselors. They can forward those questions to me, and I'm happy to share out any answers then if you have questions that come up later. Awesome. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a great rest of your day and rest of your week. Good luck with your
Thank you,
essays.
Calvin.
Yes, thank you. I'll yeah, you'll be getting all the info from me shortly.
Thank
Okay,
you.
super. Bye-bye.
Bye.